The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Called forensic findings on Obama's birth certificate. It is exploding all over the internet because I am simply reporting what the cold case posse led by Lieutenant Mike Zulu has uncovered. The long form birth certificate that Obama presented to the public is a forgery. There is no doubt about that. This is based on extensive forensic analysis that Lieutenant Zulu has conducted. He hired Reed Hayes, who is a very reputable expert based out of Honolulu. He is also a Democrat, somebody who certainly doesn't have an axe to grind. And upon looking at the certificate, Reed Hayes was shocked. He compiled a 40-page report, which is now an affidavit, which means it is a sworn legal document subject to him being hauled off on perjury charges if it is a lie. And Reed Hayes says this is a 100% forgery. Lieutenant Zulu has compiled so much evidence. He has a 300-page document that he's produced. It's about to balloon to 400 pages with national experts all testifying to the same thing. This is clearly a document that was manufactured. It appears to be a 9-layer PDF document. If I took a photocopy of your birth certificate or mine, it would just be a 1-layer document. There's no way it could be 9 layers. And yet we now have evidence beyond the shadow of a doubt that the long-form birth certificate that the president presented to the public is a 9-layer document, and it has moving parts on it. There is a stamp on it that can be moved. There is a date stamp that can be moved. These stamps that can be moved essentially mean that the document is forged. I encourage all of you to go to worldtribune.com, read the piece that I wrote, and also look at the YouTube video that Lieutenant Zulu put together. And that YouTube video shows you piece by piece by piece all of the forensic evidence that is now being compiled as part of a criminal investigation. There are lots of folks out there that are going to try to shut this down. They're using words like birther and kook. Well, what I say to them is this. We looked at Senator John McCain's record extensively when he was running for the highest office in the land. The Senate asked questions. Was he eligible? Where was he born? Does he have the right documentation? And yet, for President Barack Obama, the same inquiry was not conducted. And when questions are asked, all that his supporters can do is smear and smear and smear. But the American people are on to him, and they smell a fishy story. And that's why they kept asking questions about that short form birth certificate that he had presented in 2008. And finally, in 2011, he capitulated because the public was asking questions. And the form that he put forward in 2011, many people, upon looking at it, had doubts. I don't know, something just doesn't look right about this, especially since he had spent years fending off legal inquiry. He had used money, he had used a law firm to try to prevent further scrutiny. And suddenly this long-form birth certificate came on the scene. And it seemed to have quieted things down for a while. Yet Lieutenant Mike Zulu and the cold case posse in Arizona came to look at the document based on a request by 250 citizens of Arizona who said, you know what, we don't believe this is authentic. And to his shock, to his horror, he has concluded the same thing. And he is about to present that report to Congress. And I ask all of you to follow this story very, very carefully, as this might be the biggest fraud in American history. Stay tuned next for that exclusive interview with Lieutenant Mike Zulu on American Heartland with Dr. Grace on WTSB.
The stories that matter, the issues that count. This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
Welcome back to American Heartland with Dr. Grace. You are hearing a song that I chose for this segment. It really is the sensation that I felt when I was reviewing all the evidence. I really felt sick. I cannot believe that this is happening to this beautiful republic. I had heard about the scandal circulating the birth certificate, but I couldn't quite believe my eyes when I began to explore the evidence. One of the things that I write in the article that you will find on worldtribune.com is that many of us who are concerned about this birth certificate issue would rather be wrong than right. Because if this certificate is a fake, which we know that it is, so I should not even say if this actually goes to a congressional hearing, and this becomes a leading story in the minds of the American public, we will be embroiled in a constitutional crisis. Unpacking all of this for us right here today is the man who has spearheaded this investigation, the man who knows all the evidence like the back of his hand. I call him an American hero, Lieutenant Mike Zullo. Welcome, Lieutenant Zullo.
How are you?
I'm well. Tell us about your credentials first and foremost. I think a lot of Americans who hear this story for the first time are very skeptical. And obviously they want to know, what are the credentials of the folks that are doing this investigation, and do they have a specific axe to grind?
Okay, well, on the axe to grind, I can tell you no. The credentials are: I'm a former police officer as a detective in the state of New Jersey. I was trained in homicide investigation, fingerprint identification, domestic violence investigation, narcotics trafficking. I have been a licensed investigator in the state of New Jersey. Coming out here in Arizona, I joined Sheriff Arpaio's posse, and ultimately in 2007, I was asked by Sheriff Arpaio if I would head up a cold case unit for him. Primary goal was to assist in cold case investigations with the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. I subsequently been trained in MCSO, MCSO is acronym for Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, AZ Post-Certified Homicide Investigation, Cold Case Investigation. I had training in fugitive detection and apprehension, high-risk criminal behavior. And going forward, right now, currently, I am Chief Investigator for Sheriff Joe Arpaio into the eligibility issue of Barack Obama's long-form birth certificate and ultimately his eligibility to be President of the United States.
Right. And what a resume that is. That is extremely impressive. And I think what the American people need to understand is that this is now a criminal investigation being undertaken by a person who has law enforcement authority. You represent Sheriff Arpaio in this investigation. So this is not just another pundit talking. This is not just another radio talk show host. This is an officer of the law that stands before us and is telling us that he has uncovered damning evidence that the certificate is a forgery. Lieutenant Zullo, can you explain to the American people what exactly you have found that convinces you 100% that this is a forged document?
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.